Imagine a life where you're able to do anything that you want with fear never being a problem. You're a person of action. You're confident. You have shrunk your fears into little trivial things that don't matter in your day to day life. Now go back to the present moment and think about how far you need to go in order to get to the person that you want to be, or the hero of your story, if you will, that you guys were just thinking about. Today, we're talking about fear, and most importantly, how you can stop letting fear stop you from doing the things that you've always wanted to. You're listening to Abundant Thinking. This is the podcast that helps you take your mindset from ordinary to extraordinary. Let's get right into the episode. The first thing to consider about fear is asking yourself the question, why does fear control me? And one of the things that I see come up time and time again, and things that I think about to myself, is if I'm scared of something, why am I scared of it? The first thing, has it happened to me before? A lot of times we're so nervous about doing something and we have this false sense of perception of our own reality that we think something is more common to occur than it actually is. So I like to think about this visually because I've kind of drawn myself a map before, but it says, has this thing happened to you before? You have this little bubble. And then, yes, it has happened to me. One of the mental frames that I think about is if this thing has happened to you before, that should be another reason why you should overcome this fear so you can stop letting it guide your life. If you almost drowned when you were little and you spent the next 20 years being scared of swimming, wouldn't you want to live the rest of your life being able to swim? And even if your answer is no, wouldn't it help you just not having to worry about it at all? Because I can understand that some people are scared and they're like, you know what? I don't even care about that thing. When I go to swimming pools, I don't even swim there. When I go to the ocean, I don't even care about going inside. I just like looking at it. So the fear doesn't really control me too much. It's okay. I understand it. However, wouldn't you like to have that option? Wouldn't you like to at least think, if I want to go in the pool, I can. If I want to be with my kids in the pool, I can, instead of letting it stop you? And that's number one. This idea that if you are scared of this thing to begin with because it has happened to you in the past, that should be the exact reason why you should overcome it. Me personally, I don't like to have fears. I don't like to be scared of anything. I like to go into, rooms. I like to be in situations where the world's my oyster, if you will. If I wanted to do A, I could. If I wanted to do B, I could. If I wanted to do C, I could as well. There's no limitations. The second thing is, if this fear has never happened to you before, then it's all in your head and you're making it up. And I know this is a little bit of an intense perspective, but I wholeheartedly believe in it because I'm somebody who overthinks all the time. And I have never had a situation be as bad as I thought it would be. It's always my brain just working too hard. And that's just the person that I am. However, there are ways to get over it and there are ways to help yourself. You're overthinking without evidence. And since you don't have evidence, that evidence portion means that there's no thing that is telling you that this is going to happen, right? The evidence is proof. The evidence is proof that this thing is going to happen or it has happened. But if you lack the evidence, it hasn't happened to you in the past, meaning there's no proof to begin with that that thing is going to happen. Going back to the swimming example, if you've drowned in the past and then you go into the water again, you have proof. You have evidence that this thing has happened to you again. So it is okay to be scared of it, right? This is back to our diagram of, yes, this thing has happened to me before. We've already gone over that. However, if this thing has never happened to you before and you're just scared of going in the water just because it's a little bit uncomfortable, your fear doesn't have evidence behind it. Sure, maybe you've seen some documentaries of people drowning or you've seen some extreme cases of something bad happening, but if the thing hasn't happened to you, don't put yourself in the situation and pretend like it is going to happen to you. You need to try it on your own. I want to make it clear that these are for things that might actually apply to your day-to-day life. If you are scared of hiking a mountain, but you don't plan on ever going to the mountains again, it's understandable that that fear isn't necessarily going to be the biggest bang for your buck, right? There's no point of learning how to hike a mountain if you're never going to be in the mountains to begin with. But I would argue that if you are in a context repeatedly and you have to keep avoiding the stimuli or avoiding the thing that scares you just to get by, that's not a good way of living because it's always in the back of your head. I like to be empathetic with this because I understand that people have a lot of different cases. It's very tough. I can't sit here and pretend like everybody's fear is the same. People fear things differently. But I want to push you guys not to put yourself in this victim mindset and just kind of get over this fear of yours. We're going to go over some ways to get over it in a second. But before I do that, we talked about, has this thing happened to me before, as a question. And another thing that's very powerful that I like to ask myself is, why does this thing scare me so much? I use this almost every time I'm scared of something because I want to look it directly in the eyes and ask myself, what is it that I'm scared of? Honestly, I think the best part about this is the fact that you do it by yourself. You don't have to tell anybody else. And a lot of people have this notion that, oh, if you are scared of this thing, you're weak. Oh, if you fear this one thing, are you kidding me? How are you fearing it? That's so stupid. But when you can do it by yourself, there's no shame in admitting the things that you are scared of because you're with yourself, but also it allows you to progress. So ask yourself, why are you scared of this? I had my first fight in November, and I remember there was a point in time, the closer I got to the fight, I was getting more and more scared. And I asked myself, I remember I was journaling, why am I so scared of this thing? And I just had this whole list of things that I didn't want to admit to myself, but I had to. Why am I scared? I don't want to get knocked out. I don't want to break my nose, right? Admitting small things, you might think about it just a little bit on the tip of your brain, right? You think to yourself, "Oh, maybe I'm scared because I don't want to get hurt." And then you just kind of dismiss it. But when you sit there and actually realize, "Oh, I don't want to break my nose specifically. I don't want to get knocked out." Right? I don't want to lose in front of a bunch of people. I don't want the people at my gym to think less of me. Those are all a list of things that you say to yourself and they become very clear and very evident. And then the next time you're feeling this fear, you can determine why it is that you're feeling it. It's not, oh, I'm scared. I'm going to run away from it anymore. It's more of a, oh, I'm scared again. Oh, it's because, my teammates are around me and they're telling me about the fight. And one of my worst fears was to disappoint myself in front of them. So I got to make sure I train harder. Right? You start to identify these specific labels and these specific things as to why you are scared of this thing. And the last question I want you guys to ask yourself is, if I did this thing, would it make me feel better? Going back to my hiking example, if you guys don't hike, right? You've went one time in your life and you were scared and you don't want to do it again. If you don't learn how to overcome your fear, it's nothing changes, right? Because you've only been there once in your life. So if you got over this fear, nothing would really change. Yeah, you'd be able to hike, but you don't like hiking to begin with. You don't live near any trails, and also you've only done it once in your life. So why would it affect you? However, if you're scared of going to the swimming pool and you catch yourself on vacation every single year, wanting to just go in there and overcome your fear, but you're so embarrassed about what everybody thinks, then this mental frame will work better for you. Think about this and think about it honestly, if overcoming your fear would actually help you. Going back to my fight example, writing down and thinking about all my specific fears for why I was scared of this fight helped me overcome it, and it made things a lot more clear. When I identified it, it made me feel a lot better. And then when I actually did it, it made me feel the best because I did it to begin with, right? Now, the solution to your guys' problems is action. Action beats anything else. If you are able to take small steps, big steps, whatever it is, just push yourself into the correct direction. It is only a matter of time until you overcome your fears. If you guys are scared of swimming, but every single day you got in the pool for a little bit, right? Even just dipped your feet in, little by little you got in, eventually you will not be scared of the water. This is a psychological fact. It's called exposure therapy. You gradually increase your exposure to things over time. And that was gonna be my two different ways of overcoming fear. This is how I think about it. So you have your gradual and you have your go all in, put yourself in the situation first time techniques, quote unquote, if you will. But the first one, which I think is going to be the safest for all of you, is if you're scared about something, start very small and work your way up. Also, when you start small, you kind of get the ball rolling a little more, so it's easier to be consistent. I know it's tough to get in the swimming pool right away, but if you just dip your toes in a little bit and you just have your feet in, then you get your knees in, and then you just work over time, you are going to overcome your fear, especially if you fight through the uncomfortable. I know it's not easy. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's easy, but it's necessary, which I think is the exact reason why you should do it. So there's working up gradually and there's just throwing yourself in there. So it's the difference between like I said, dipping your toes in, dipping your knees in, and then just jumping in the water, right? And obviously, if you don't know how to swim, I don't want you to drown. Like jump in the water and hold on to the rail or hold on to the, like little side part. But it's two ways to think about it. I'm gonna be honest. For me, I'm more of a go in kind of person because it eliminates my fear so much faster. In the couple of days leading up to jumping into the pool, if I could just jump in the pool on day one, I would do it just to get it over with. And I understand not everybody's like me. That's why I suggested another alternative to it. Gradually works better for people who are more conservative, who maybe aren't as much confident in themselves and just want to be very careful, which I totally understand, guys. I mean, this used to be me. Like, I also want to say this. This used to be me. I used to be the person that would gradually go in, but now I kind of like to just throw myself in there. A good example of this is when I public speak, I like to just rip off the band-aid. Like, I don't like to okay, first I'm going to start off with, I'm going to present in front of my roommate first, and then I'm going to present in front of three of my friends, and then I'm going to do three of my friends, and then call my parents. I don't like to do that. It's like I'm going to practice this a lot. I'm going to practice it as many times until I get good, and then I'm going to go into the room of 100 people and then do it because that's the way. This is the way to get better. I don't want to slowly build my way up. I want to just do it and have the confidence to begin with. Another example of my two methods, I think this might help you guys visualize it a little bit more, is starting off if you're scared of roller coasters. Also, I want to say, I am not a fan of roller coasters. My friends used to go all the time to Six Flags, and they'd always invite me, and I would never go. I get very nervous when I'm waiting in the line, and then I have to go up the roller coaster, and then whatever. When I get on the roller coaster, it's okay, but then waiting is the hardest part for me. But roller coasters never affected my life. Like I never wanted to learn. I never felt like I was missing out when my friends were at the roller coaster. I was actually happy that I was home because I'm just not a fan of roller coasters. So that's one of those examples of it really didn't affect my life. And you could argue, oh, you missed time with your friends. You could have been with your friends, but the thing is, I wasn't worried about it. It's not like I was cooped up in a ball in my room thinking, man, if only I can get over the fear of roller coasters and I can be with my friends. No, I was like, I'm gonna let them go, and then I'll get some food with them later. Or I'll find a way to hang out with them. So if we were to pretend that I wanted to get over my fear of roller coasters, there is the gradual, which is start on a little teapot, the smallest roller coaster. Start there and work your way up, or go all in, go on the tallest roller coaster and just get that over with. I will say in the past when I did go on roller coasters, the the bigger they were, the more I kind of felt confident. So sometimes, if you're willing to do it, going on the biggest roller coaster might not be the worst idea. However, I think this is one of those cases where for me, if anything, I would go on the gradual. If I actually wanted to overcome the roller coasters, I would want to go on the gradual just because it's not as important for me to go on the biggest one, right? I like public speaking, so for me, I want to build up the skills. I want to be as good as I can at this thing. So that's why when I was telling you guys, I go all in. I like to be in the room of 100 people because it's the hardest thing for me. I enjoy, I enjoy it. But with roller coasters, I just feel like I don't have that. You have to be honest with yourself. That's the thing. Like I'm not gonna pretend that I'm only this way or I'm only this way. But there's certain times where I'd want to be gradual, like the roller coaster, and there's times where I'd want to go all in, like public speaking or something that I feel like I can build better skills with. Action is your guys' biggest asset. Small steps, big steps, doesn't matter. Just take some steps in that direction, and you are going to find yourself making a lot more progress than you thought you could. And it's going to all happen a lot quicker than you can imagine. This has been Abundant Thinking. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I'll see you next Tuesday.